All right, no question time today. It was a busy start day, though, for a new sitting fortnight coming up. They're all coming in, obviously in from all around the country, but plenty of machinating going on, let me tell you. Joining me now to discuss it all for the first time in 2026, political contributor here at Sky, Chris Uhlmann. Chris, we'll start with that unsuccessful spill motion from Colin Boyce. He might have attempted to move it, but he didn't even have a seconder in the room. I predicted that last Thursday. But it's just yet another example, though, going out there and announcing a spill motion, a fight that's gone nowhere, and all it's done is help tank support for the former coalition. We'll get into that shocking poll in a moment, but we've got these talks going on as we are now on air. Sussan Ley, David Littleproud, trying to sit down together and remake the broken coalition. If there is a reunion, what does this do to Angus Taylor's chances of taking her on? Hastie's out of the race. Taylor's pitch has been, and you know, it's been put to me that I can fix the broken coalition that she's broken now on 2 occasions. So if she can fix it tonight, will that save Sussan Ley?
No, Peter, I don't think so. And we've seen this show before. We know where this ends, right? Sussan Ley's leadership is terminal. That's not entirely all her fault, by the way. I do feel sorry for her. I never think that she's been given a chance. But if the coalition does get back together again, it's going to have to come with some pretty big guarantees from the National Party. It will have to be an agreement that is written down and written in blood, because you can't have this sort of 16-year-old toing and froing with a relationship that's important as the coalition. And of course, they're completely spooked by One Nation, and they have every right to be. The next election that's going to test this is in South Australia. I spoke to a Labor Party person today who said that polling in South Australia by the Labor Party puts One Nation ahead of Liberals in many regional seats. So it might go from being polling that we're talking about to the actual change of seats, or at least putting both of those parties in a position where it's all handed to Labor.
The problem they've got, particularly in South Australia, in New South Wales, in Victoria, all 3 new female leaders in their first term in the parliament, and when voters see One Nation on the ticket, even at a state election, they are voting for Pauline Hanson, and most probably can't pick the opposition Liberal leader in a lineup. And that's one of the things I'll contend with that South Australian election in March, and of course a bit longer for Jess Wilson. But if you look at the numbers there, Chris, for the Libs today, 17%. I mean, 17%. I cannot believe that. And you add in the Nats, they don't even get to 20. Do not even get to 20. And they're all lamenting a terrible election campaign by Peter Dutton. Peter Dutton only got us to 31% primary. It's all Dutton's fault, says this review we haven't even seen. Well, what do you say when you're down at 19, Sussan?
Yeah, this defection we're seeing, of course, it could be just a protest vote that we're seeing in the polls, but it will be put to the test, as I say, in South Australia, and we may well see Corey Bernardi join the One Nation cause in the next 24 hours. I think we'll know before the end of this evening whether or not that's going to be the case. That's a very powerful, very well-known voice in South Australia, added to the voice of Barnaby Joyce in New South Wales, Pauline Hanson in Queensland. You know, there's a lot of organisation going on, Peter. This is the thing that would worry me, and I know is panicking the National Party. One Nation now has money, and it clearly also has organisation. People are talking to me about their social media campaign, which is exceptionally strong. It is being well managed. They are clearly following a pattern that they've seen from reform in the UK. We'll see defections, and that'll be the next thing. And those defections will come back. So Corey Bernardi already outside of Parliament, but leading the Liberal Party and joining One Nation sends a signal. Then will we see defections from the Liberal or the National parties to One Nation? I bet those talks have already been had, and they'll be strung out to make it look like the coalition is bleeding to death. So they need to stop the bleeding, and God knows how they do that, because right now, if you're looking for an image of what this looks like from the outside, I'd say Jamestown circa 1978. This looks like a mass suicide attempt by the Liberal and National parties, and they're being very successful at it.
The difficulty here when you look at reform and you look at the previous iterations of Hanson is that they lack the professional back end. And when I've gone to London, I've spent quite a lot of time with reform staff and some of their strategists. I've always been fascinated how they take a protest party and turn it into this successful beast that it is now. if I've done that, I would guarantee One Nation people have done that. You're right, from what I've seen some appointments they've made, and they've created a whole architecture at a state level, which they haven't had. I mean, one of the things I've always said's let them down is their poor selection of candidates, lack of strategy of getting the message to market. That is absolutely changing. So talk to me then. If the Liberal Party is to move to someone like Angus Taylor, they're going to have to get some results pretty quickly, start to claw back some of that vote before what we're seeing now that's starting to hit trend, Chris, becomes locked in, because it's not that long federally before we have another election.
Look, I think that the Liberal Party is going to make a change. They have to make that change now because time is actually running out. And what will be important for Angus Taylor are what are the first 3 or 4 paragraphs that he's going to say to the Australian people when he does take this. And when he does take this, it's now inevitable that at some stage he gets the leadership. What does he say to the Australian people to try and get them back on board with a coalition project when there is almost no faith in it at all? And he's not a great communicator. If I was one of his colleagues talking to him now about the possibility that he might take the leadership, I would want to know what are the policy positions, what anchors us, what defines a coalition that will bring people back first into the fold and then try to attract other people. Now, people can keep talking too about the Labor Party's poor primary vote. Well, look, the way that they're working the two-party preferred system at the moment, there's a 50 member gap in the House of Representatives. That's all that matters in the end between elections, is how many members you've got in the House of Representatives. Now, it's no wonder Anthony Albanese is cock-a-hoop. There is no opposition at the moment. He is coasting at a time when he should be suffering.
Yeah, and I'll just make that point just quickly before we go, because if you look at, let's look at one indice anyway, let's look at inflation. There'll be pain for people with mortgages tomorrow. There's pain for everybody across the board. You've got the budget watchdog out today saying that they have had a massive blowout in the budget. It is $57 billion on from those MyEFO numbers, and 2/3 of that is because of government spending, but they're not under pressure.
No, and the other thing too is the government now has actually decided that the Australian people are mugs. Why do we know that? Well, because they said they didn't want a Royal Commission and then they were forced into one and then they said they were considering it all along. Why do we know that? Because they keep saying government spending's got nothing to do with inflation, and yet we look at the largest amount of government spending as a percentage of GDP since the 1980s. They are prepared now to say the opposite of what is true and not be held to account because they have an inept opposition. There is opportunity there, but the people who are taking that opportunity at the moment, well, that's One Nation.
I'll leave it there, Chris. Great to have you back for my side of things. I wish there was better things to talk about, but that's where we are tonight. We've got to hold, the Libs aren't going to do it. We have to hold the government to account here on Sky News. Thank you. See you next week.